Hi everyone, my name is Megan Chrome, and today I'm going to be discussing the Friends episode, the one with Chandler's dad. I'm sure most of us know, but Friends was a TV series in the late 90s and early 2000s. The first episode aired on September 22nd, 1994, and the series was created by David Crane and Marta Kaufman. Those two were also some of the main writers, but they had other writers working on each individual episode to make each one a little bit different. Even though the setting of the series was in New York, it was actually filmed in Burbank, California at the Warner Bros. Studio. It had 236 episodes consisting of 7 seasons, and the last episode aired on May 6, 2004. I'm going to be using the lens gender studies or queer theory in this episode of Friends. Gender studies and queer theory explore issues of sexuality, power, and marginalized populations in literature and culture, and that is from the Purdue Writing Lab. Some questions I'll be answering throughout this PowerPoint about this episode are: how does the episode use masculine or feminine words? Does the dialogue show that the writers were homophobic? And how does the dialogue show knowledge of the LGBT community? This specific episode is called The One with Chandler's Dad. It was episode 22 of season 7. It aired on May 10th, 2001, and it was written by Brian Buckner and Sebastian Jones and directed by Gary Halvorson and Kevin S. Bright. In this episode, Chandler had just proposed to Monica to be married, and they wanted to invite Chandler's dad to the wedding. However, when Chandler was a young boy, he and his parents split because his father wanted to become a transgender woman. After his father's transition, he moved to Vegas and started working at a nightclub, and Chandler had not had very much contact with him since then. The first example from this episode that I'm going to talk about is when Monica and Chandler first get to the nightclub that Chandler's dad works at, and Monica is talking to their server about who or if they had gotten their drink order taken yet. And Monica says, yes, she got our order. No, I'm sorry, I'm new here. Monica shows lack of knowledge towards the server about which or if to even use a pronoun because she's not used to the crowd or that situation. But she doesn't want to use just one pronoun because she doesn't want to offend the server. The next example comes from Chandler, and it's after Chandler's dad appears on stage. Chandler turns to Monica and says, "And there's daddy," even though Chandler's father is now a transgender woman. And this shows lack of acceptance towards his father's change, and it may or may not be hinting at a little bit of homophobia towards the script. Another example comes from Chandler's dad, and she is beginning her show in the nightclub and says, "I see a couple of regulars in the audience and a couple of irregulars." She's obviously referring to her audience, and it shows that she knows who is and who is not part of her community. Since it is in Vegas, there are lots of people coming in and out of the club, but she knows that people that typically come to the club are part of the LGBT community and doesn't want to use specific pronouns to classify them. She does this because she has been in that situation herself. Obviously, her son Chandler still feels that way, and she doesn't want to use pronouns to classify anyone. My last example comes from Chandler, and it's also part of his conversation with the server. She is asking him who had gotten their drink order, and Chandler says, "I just ordered a beer," and hits his fist on the table. And the server, who is a transgender woman, rolls her eyes and said, "I get it, you're straight." Chandler feels he needs to defend his masculinity in this situation because he is uncomfortable with the situation. And the server is annoyed because in that crowd of people who have accepted and embraced themselves, they don't need to defend anything about their personality or how they feel about themselves. And here's my works cited. Thanks, guys.